Welcome back to the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, lifelong helper, nonprofit founder, and your host. I've been interviewing the helpers for a decade with my blog, and I'm so grateful to now be sharing these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Today, our guest is Justin Gracieux, founder of Oath to Country Foundation, a nonprofit organization that's on a mission to honor and support our veterans' mental health and offer multiple resources. Join us to hear the amazing family story that led to the founding of this incredible organization. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss this. I am so excited this morning to have Justin Gracieux from Oath to Country Foundation joining us. Welcome, Justin. We're so happy that you're here.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It is an honor and privilege to be with you this morning, to speak with you as well as your community on behalf of Oath to Country Foundation. So let's get the show on the road. Let's get the story going.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So why don't we start out with you telling all of us a little bit about what Oath to Country Foundation does, what's your mission, what you do.
Yeah, so I'd like to first start off with a quick introduction. So my name is Dr. Justin Ryan Gracieux. First and foremost, glory to God for this opportunity to speak with you and your community. A little bit about the foundation. There's so much to share with you, and I'm really excited. So bear with me while my nerves start to work up because, 24 hours in advance, having to prepare for this, it really strikes, and I could kind of already feel my fingers shaking a little bit because it takes me down a very tough path prior to starting this foundation in 2019, which I'll share the story momentarily, but it's really sentimental to me as well as it is for my family. So bear with me while I work through the nerves. But
there's nothing to be nervous about. It's just let's hear a little bit about what you guys do, and I'm really excited to hear the story because there's not a nonprofit founder I've ever met who hasn't had an incredible personal journey that triggered them to serve. So that's why we're here, and I can't wait to hear all about it. And there is nothing to be nervous about. But tell us what you guys do. What does Oath to Country Foundation do? First of all, I just love the name. It speaks to my soul. It speaks to my soul.
And I'll tell you where that name stemmed from, how it stemmed during COVID. So the foundation wouldn't be what it is today without the love and support from all the friends, families, and beautiful strangers who have come out into the public with us to raise awareness and prevention of suicide, not only just for our veterans, but also for our military and first responders. So the name of the foundation, as we all know, is Oath to Country Foundation. It was founded during 2020 in the middle of COVID, and this would have put us around August. And we'll get to a little bit of that backstory shortly. But we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization registered with the state of California, based out of Los Angeles, California. We work together with our partnerships and community to forge strong bonds and lifetime support in providing our heroes with the health resources to improve their mental health to prevent the next suicide from occurring.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't. I'm famous for misquoting statistics, but I want to say I remember once upon a time, I've interviewed a lot of nonprofits. Is it 22 veterans a day that commit suicide? Is that the number?
So it is widely known. Yes. Yes, it is widely known. I mean, it's been that way for quite some time now. And I don't have, a time frame as to when that number originally occurred, but during COVID, we know that number was exacerbated due to the social isolation, the lockdown. The very aggressive lockdowns that we all experience here in Southern California. I can't really speak to what other states were experiencing, but here in Los Angeles, it was a very difficult time for many of us. Military, non-military, first responder, non-first responder. Even just our neighbors alone. We're going through it, and we all know, because we could all share a testimony and story about how we were faced with various challenges in not being able to see our loved ones and still trying to keep it all together.
Right.
during one of the toughest periods in our country's history. So, but
and it makes sense that that's when you started it, because you think about our veterans who are already struggling with mental health issues from their unbelievable service to our country and giving. I get emotional talking about our veterans. I just love them so much. Sorry, but I think that I know. I just love what these incredible humans have done for us. But you think of being isolated, and you think about what they're already going through, what they're struggling with on a daily basis, on top of adding COVID and the isolation. It's a recipe for disaster. So that number of 22, which is just stuck in my head from such a long time, and so many nonprofits I've interviewed that serve veterans over the years, I can't even imagine what that number is, and it literally breaks my heart. As you can hear from my voice, I get so emotional thinking about it. So I always say this, people, but most of us, when we're young children and they ask us what we want to be when we grow up, we say a fireman, a doctor, a nurse, whatever we want to be. Nonprofit founder usually doesn't make the top 10 for the most part. So there's a process that happens to all of us when we have this moment, and almost everybody I've ever interviewed can tell you the moment. And it's a moment, or that they decided they needed to do this, and or the things that triggered that moment. There's a path we walk that takes us to that moment. And so I'm sure you were on a different path, and something fell in your way that changed your path. So tell us about what you were doing, and then where and how you ended up going in this direction during a pandemic to create the Oath to Country Foundation.
Okay. But before I get there, I do want to touch on a very important topic, which is our mission statement, what we stand for and who we are, our definition of our nonprofit organization.
Please do.
So our mission is to foster a community of connectivity and collaboration with partnerships and volunteers to educate on, advocate for, and strengthen veterans, military, and first responders' mental health, and to provide street-side resources for the ones that end up homeless or low income in Southern California. Oath to Country Foundation is also sponsoring combat veteran psychotherapy treatment sessions provided by a board-certified clinical psychologist. And to sort of transition to that question that was asked just a second ago. So during the latter years of 2019, I was told it wouldn't work because I never served.
Oath to Country wouldn't work. That you couldn't start a nonprofit that served veterans if you weren't a veteran.
That is correct. But I quickly realized that you didn't have to serve our country in that capacity to serve our country.
Amen.
I navigated, and that's a platform that I will always stand on because of the individuals that come out and support and who are part of this mission with us, have their own stories. And many of my friends who have never served come out to serve their community in this space to help amplify that message to save lives. And we're all serving together, and that is where it really strikes a chord for a lot of people, because now we have a lot of perfect and beautiful strangers who come out who have never served, who want to be in a space with like-minded individuals, with the right idea, with the right mission and platform for them to share their stories about their loved ones. Because I'll never forget this. I mean, I have a lot of stories and experiences I'll share with you, but to touch on that topic of sharing stories, I was in the hospital one day, and to kind of go back to what I do full time, I work in hospital administration. So I have the opportunity to work alongside a lot of our healthcare heroes day in, day out, full time, 24/7, 365. So, but
thank you for that.
Thank you. I was in a hospital hallway one day, and I was stopped at what we call the crossroads in our hospital. And I wish I could show you, but we were in the middle of the hospital, and a gentleman approached me and said, "Hey, I'm following your mission on Instagram," and he goes, "Hey man, I want to share something with you, and that's that my grandfather served during World War II as well, along with 3 or 4 other of his uncles." And he started to share his grandfather's combat experience, or the little that he knew during World War II. And it was as if that story was vaulted for so many years, because I don't know if he's shared that experience or knowledge of his grandfather, but for him to say, "Hey, I have to share something with you because it's on my heart." I mean, this gentleman he was fighting tears in the hospital. And I was like, you know what, this here is what it's all about. Come forward. We will embrace you. We will take you in under our wing. Tell us more about your entire family's military history. Right. Because these are the stories of the unsung. Many of them.
Justin, that's what I call a nonprofit payday, because we don't do this for money. We do this to serve humanity. We do this to help our fellow man. That's why we do this work. And that was a payday. That was how you get paid. And it's the best payday. Those paydays are what fuel you to keep going when it's hard. Those are the paydays. But tell us how you got started. Tell us how it began. And okay. I know there's a grandfather component, because I know you just shared about this other gentleman who approached you in the hospital with his grandfather, but I know your grandfather has a little something to do with this. So share with me what were the things that changed your path and that triggered you to go on to do this? What happened?
So I'm going to read something verbatim that I've never shared with anyone. And it was tough to even read the first couple sentences this morning in preparation for this talk with you. So here it goes.
Okay.
Thank you for contacting the National Personnel Record Center. The record needed to answer your inquiry is not on file. If the record were here on July 12, 1973, it would have been in the area that suffered the most damage in the fire on that date and may have been destroyed. The fire destroyed the major portion of records of Army military personnel for the period 1912 through 1959, and records of Air Force personnel with surnames Hubbard through Z for the period 1947 through 1963. Fortunately, these alternate record sources that often contain information which can be used to reconstruct service data were lost in the fire. However, complete records cannot be reconstructed. So here it goes. A little backstory. My mom was 17 years old. My mom's one of 4 sisters, so many of the sisters were right around that age range during the time that my grandfather passed. And actually, it's a pretty sentimental period that I'm actually in right now personally, because my grandfather passed away on the 27th of October, which was just a couple days ago, and
sorry.
And this was in 1983, so 38 years ago. And on November 7th, a few days from now, he would have been buried. And so this letter written by my mom at the age of 17 would tell you a little bit more. Or I think she was a couple years older at this point. To whom it may concern, I hope that you can be of help and refer me to anyone that will read this letter. My father, Joe B. Montoya, was born June 23rd, 1927. He was a veteran with more than several honorable discharge certificates that I can remember. My father was a very hard worker and a good father to me, and that is why I'm here today. I vowed that I would have him a burial that he thought he was given. My father has been deceased since October of 1983, or November. I'll try and make a long story short. We had a fire, and I know my father's discharge paperwork was burned. At the age of 17, when I lost my dad, it was a promise to him to get a copy of his papers and have him a burial service with full honors, along with being buried with the veterans of the United States. He now lives in a cemetery with no one knowing his battle to serve our country. There was no flag or knowledge of him in the service. With approximately 14 years of his life dedicated to this country, and I need someone to help me find his past. My family tried as long as we can to postpone his burial in a hope to find his service. We called many places looking for a tracer of his veteran background. Prior to his death, he was seen at the Veterans Hospital in California. At the time, he had the original discharge paperwork. When calling the hospital, they were unable to locate them because they didn't have a copy of what they did. A copy of the death certificate and photos of him were or are enclosed. I called Washington, D.C., and nobody could hear me cry for help. Now a mother of 3 and much older in life, I now understand the hurt I feel for my father to have a flag and a burial with the people that fought with him in the service. Bits and pieces that I hope that can help you help me. He served in the Army and was also a merchant marine. And I know he dedicated his life to. Hope to hear a response soon. Nancy.
Oh my gosh, Justin. So your grandfather served for 14 years in the military, and thank you for sharing that with us, first of all, because that was beautiful. And I'm sure everyone listening is in tears, as you and I both are, because that is heart-wrenching to think of someone who's given their life to our country, 14 years of service, and a fire destroyed the records that he existed, basically, and denied him a proper military burial and recognition of all he gave to our country, which, as we're seeing right now with so many of our veterans right now that you're working with, they're denied the same thing in a different way that your grandfather was denied. And so somehow that thread, I have to believe, is what was the beginning of the path, which I also have to believe your grandfather is somehow orchestrating all of this for you in a beautiful way that is already beautiful with what you're doing. So I have to believe that he is behind this in the most magical of ways, in righting a wrong that was done to him, and you acknowledging, and everyone listening, his service.
So let me add to that. So in September of 2019, I was at my parents' house. My mom called me into her room, and keep in mind, this is just right before, COVID hit. So my mom called me into her room and she goes, JR, here's a folder. And it was weather beaten. It was an old vanilla envelope kind of thing. And she goes, open it up and see what you want to do with it. So I opened it up, and that's where I found that letter written by my mom.
And did you know nothing about this before? Not really?
No. Well, I knew that he served our country because of the very few photos that I have of him that I've had with me in my room, I mean, for many years now. But it wasn't until this very defining moment where my mom gave me this folder, and it had a lot of his burial information in it. So I started putting together a timeline. Okay. He enlisted in 1945, but the backstory on that is, come to find out, and going through our family's history and asking a lot of questions, and even asking a lot of questions that should have never been asked. I mean, because a lot of information I kind of died with him, so to speak, which should have never been retold. So I uncovered a lot of open wounds that just had band-aids over them, and it was really tough for the family to even answer these questions that I was asking during this time, right around September. So right. I took this folder, opened it up, and I noticed that there was a lot of information that I could use to my advantage to step forward back into that arena that my mom did at such a young age, to fight for his veteran recognition and 14 years of service. So come to find out, my grandpa Joe came from a long family line of miners, and he had a troubled, from what I know, a troubled youth. He really didn't have much care and support back home, and so it's what I know today that he forged his birth certificate to enlist, and
which a lot of people did back. A lot of people did back then.
And
I
know
9/11 we saw that. Post 9/11 we saw that as well.
We did, and some of which are in World War II even were as young as 13 years old. So my grandfather was just a young teen. He forged his name, age, date of birth. I mean, you can imagine he falsified a lot of information. Right. And at this time, I think he ran away from home, and so things weren't right on the home front. And I feel that this was probably the right thing for him to do. So right around this time, I started interviewing friends and family members who served our country from World War II, Vietnam, Korean War, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. So I started putting together conducting these interviews to put together these stories. And simply because the story of my grandfather wasn't accurately passed down through the generations, I felt as though it was my duty to pay it forward and to tell and archive the stories of my friends and families and those that I would meet in the public. And believe me when I say I would approach veterans anywhere out in the public, and I would ask them, would it be okay for me to tell your story? And I remember meeting a gentleman over dinner who served in the Navy, and I have his interview up on my website. But it really opened up my eyes to what motivated them to serve. The experiences they had, the fun experiences, the traumatic experiences, and I learned a lot about war, and what it has done and what it does to our American soldiers, and some of which, PT, post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, isolation, and ultimately suicide. So it really opened up my heart, my mind to what it really means to serve. So on this basis, this was the foundation for my foundation. So it was shortly thereafter I filed the paperwork with the state of California in March to start my nonprofit and go full speed ahead.
Wow.
So I know my purpose. I know my mission. I am supported by my friends and my family members, and to really honor and pay tribute to my grandfather, who was a forgotten a veteran. So COVID hit March 2020. I couldn't do a single thing. And it was, and to fast forward until August of 2020 was actually the first grand opening, if you will, of the foundation. I said, enough is enough. I cannot remain dormant, because we're losing good men and women to suicide every single day. And I need to get the message out. So, and a little backstory too. While interviewing veterans, my uncle, who was a paratrooper during the Korean conflict, was dying right around the month of March. So I flew out to Colorado to get his interview, and we sat, and the little information that he did remember, he shared with me, and I archived that on my website as well.
Oh, it's such a beautiful gift.
I fly all around the country and sit with veterans all day long.
So when you do these things, I mean, I know you have a lot of full-time jobs. I know your schedule, and it's a little bit crazy. And I think also people that start nonprofits, one of the reasons we tell these stories is because people don't realize how much work this all is. And there's so many challenges along the way. You said already out the gate, you were told from the beginning, challenge number one, you can't do this. You're not a veteran. No, you can't even do this. So there's challenge one right there. Because we hear no a lot, but we're determined, and you're determined to honor your grandfather's legacy and all of those that have served. So what are some of the challenges that you continue to run into besides government bureaucracy, which is obviously one of them, where the story starts?
Yeah. So as a Christian and as a believer, to go back to your previous point, being told that this would never work, I remember vividly prior to while going through all the state and IRS paperwork to formulate the nonprofit. I remember one night, and this is before it was officially filed. I remember praying. I was in bed. I mean, it was late night. I don't know. I'm a night owl, so I really don't sleep. So I remember trying to get some rest, and all I could think about was the nonprofit, how it's going to work. Will it work? I mean, I had a lot of self-doubt, and really trying to overcome that, because I was about to step into a space that I know a little bit of, but not enough to feel comfortable or confident to do a successful job. Stepping into into this role. So I remember praying. I prayed, and I remember it pretty vividly. I remember saying, God, I'm coming to you because I'm scared. I'm nervous. I know I have a heart for this. I want to do it, but I don't know how I'm going to do it because I never served. And I said, if this is what you want me to do and to do your will, I said, just open the doors for me and I will go through them and I will never look back. I said, just help me see that this is the mission that you want me to serve. And before you know, I mean, we're here having a conversation today about it.
I mean, it's so beautiful. Well, I think the work is really hard. And I think that we get faced with challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as nonprofit founders is there's a moment when we realize we can't help everybody. There's a moment when we realize that there's more need than we can fulfill. There's a moment where we have like the backs of people on us. And when we go to bed at night and we lay our head down, it's not like we didn't make enough pencils that day. It's like we have men and women that are living on the streets. We have people that if they don't get mental health, they might not be here tomorrow. If they don't get help, that we carry, and we feel that we carry, that we are called to carry. And so when you're working at the hospital and you have a long day and you're doing you have a full-time job, you still have laundry, you still have bills, you still have every daily thing that everybody else has, family, friends, all the obligations that we have. And you have thousands of veterans that are relying on you. What fuels you to keep going when you think, I cannot go and I have nothing left to give here. I've given it all.
Well, prayer and friendship. There's a lot of individuals that are helping lead this nonprofit and trying to push it forward every single day, working on a shoestring budget. So we perceive challenges as opportunities with our nonprofit. Looking at the glass half full, because we have so many opportunities to rewrite the course of history for our heroes, to do right in the world, to serve others and pay it forward and save lives. So that is our fuel to our cause. We're here for the right reasons. We're here at the right time. And we want to have an everlasting impact on the mental health for all of those around us. And it really takes a lot of heart and soul. And I remember talking to a friend of mine recently, who we're going to get to in a second. We were talking about employment, and I go, you know what? We've been in operation for 14 months. Yeah, we're only 14 months old.
You're a baby. You're a baby.
So we're not salaried. We don't take any kind of paycheck.
Of course you are. That's the way it works. So talk to me about and you might be such a baby that this word hasn't totally affected you yet, but if it hasn't, it will. And I always say I have a love-hate relationship with the word impact, because I write grants and I have to measure my nonprofits that I run's impact. I have to measure how you teach leadership. I have to measure things that are immeasurable, how you show love, how you mentor. I mean, there are immeasurable things that impact, but yet people want to know, and it's good to have standards, and it's good to have goals, and it's good to have things that measure your success. But success comes in a lot of different ways. And as you said, friendship. I mean, building a community, rallying people, spreading the word. There's a million ways we have impact. So what would you say your impact's been in this very short amount of time? You're a baby, and it's not, there's no wrong answer. An impact could be, you already told us one impact. You had a gentleman in the hospital approach you with a story. Like that's an impact, right? But what do you think your impact overall has kind of been in this short period of time?
So, we're running multiple programs right now, and our impact is bringing our community together for various types of programs. So recently, just this past weekend, we hosted our second beach yoga for mental health. So we bring together the community, our military, veterans, first responders, for a day on the beach. My best friend's wife is a yoga instructor, so she provides the guided session for us for about an hour on the beach, and it's very therapeutic for many of us who have or live hectic lives and just trying to decompress from the reality of everything going on right now. We're also conducting our 22-mile challenge. So we either run, bike, ruck, or walk 22 miles along the California coast, 22 miles for 22 veterans, and I run it with 22 pounds, signifying the lives taken by way of suicide every day. And what we're also doing is we're sponsoring psychotherapy treatment sessions for our combat veterans. We are also sponsoring gym memberships for our first responders, veterans, military, across various gyms here in Southern California. So we're running multiple programs right now, but I think one of the more special programs that we're doing right now, we're actively involved with daily, is providing street side resources for our homeless veterans here in Los Angeles County. So it's a real personal
what does that
program.
Look like? Street side resources. Is that water? Is that mental health? Is that food? Is that a blanket? What does that look like?
So recently, our team, we went street side to Veteran Row. So Veteran Row is located on San Vicente Boulevard here in Los Angeles, right outside the VA Greater Los Angeles. There's approximately 45 to 50 homeless veterans right now that have served our country. They've all been vetted and accounted for there. So recently, just a couple weeks ago, we put together approximately $4,000 worth of resources, from hygienic products to clothing, tents, insect repellent supplies, because living there on the streets has its challenges. So we're helping them with the rodent issue that they're faced with daily. And as we know, here in Southern California, it is towards the colder months of the year. So we plan on going back out there right around Christmas to donate even more resources to be prepared for the colder months. So shoes. I mean, we've partnered with some amazing companies and individuals that have donated food. I mean, there's so many people involved. I mean, hundreds of names involved. I can't even begin to even list them, but when they listen in, thank you for donating and being part of that giving. And so we bring together the community to help us go forward on these days, to give back, to hear their stories, and to just pour love into them for a day, and to let them know that they're not alone.
You know what? Every Christmas I go to the VA in LA and I sing to the veterans with a group of us. We go into the hospital and we sing Christmas carols. And I've done this every year. And it sounds like it's like the simplest, silliest things, that we go room to room or floor to floor, and they try to get everyone to the end of the floors. But in the last few years, we haven't, because of COVID, obviously. And this homeless row of veterans outside the VA has grown. It didn't exist. And anyone who lives in Los Angeles, when you see the hundreds of acres of land inside the VA in the hospitals, and you see people, exactly. And you see these veterans outside, homeless, there is just something so heart-wrenching about it. So maybe we need to add singing to Christmas caroling this year to those veterans on the outside instead of just the ones on the inside.
Yeah, we'd love to have you alongside us for a day.
I would love to. And by the way, our voices are not good. You couldn't even hear from my raspy. It's not about having a beautiful voice. It's about having a beautiful heart. It's about having a beautiful heart. And when people hear these songs that are their childhood and their life, it's so joyful. It is one of the greatest days of the year for me. And it is the true meaning of Christmas. So I digress, but we got to keep going on this because we got still lots to cover.
To go back to that point really quick. So to circle back, I didn't get time to quite finish, but my friend Eddie and I were discussing the other day, we're not on salary, that kind of thing. And how are we going to make this work? And we're going to, how are we going to, what are we going to do to grow our programs and the funding for it? And we're like, you know what? Well, the individuals that are helping us, we're not asking them for remarkable, stellar talent. We're not asking for a beautiful voice. We're not asking for deep pockets. We're not asking for over the top, skill sets. Our application process right now for our foundation is actually heart. Do you have heart? And if you have heart, come forward. You're hired.
Because that's all it is. It's passion and having a heart. When you care, I mean, and when you go and sing to the veterans, it doesn't matter when you go and do something for anybody, but when you go and sing to the veterans, that's what you're giving. You're giving love. You're just giving love. And it may be a very bad voice. It may be a very bad rendition of Jingle Bells, but it is love. And they feel it and they give it back in spades. You get always way more than you give every time. It is the most joyful thing. But we're going to talk offline about that. So I know obviously you're a big dreamer because you can't be a leader and you cannot lead unless you serve. And you have to have a vision to lead. And you obviously have a vision for Oaths to Country Foundation. And a vision is a dream. So if you can dream any dream or have any vision for what Oaths to Country Foundation becomes, what does that look like for you?
And the war on suicide.
It's a big dream, and that's a good one.
We're doing everything we can every day to prevent the next suicide from occurring. I mean, we're in it for a long fight. We won't give in. We won't back down. And we have the right people involved in this organization to help accomplish that. And we're just taking it one day at a time right now because this battle that we're faced with right now isn't easy.
No.
And we understand the challenges that come with it. I mean, the effects of how it impacts our personal lives, even my own mental health. We have such strong bonds with one another. Our team, Sandy, let me tell you really quick about him. Sandy served 26 years in the U.S. Navy. He was served during the Vietnam conflict and aboard a nuclear submarine. He's our chief financial officer. Post-war, he went on to work at the Pentagon in finance accounting. We also have Jim Helms, former mayor of the city of Arcadia, who's our honorary board member. He was 19 years old when he became in charge of about 1,000 POWs when the bomb dropped during World War II.
Wow.
He was a major in the United States Army. He's our honorary board member, and we are proud to have him part of this mission. And this is really personal for him too. Eddie, who's my best friend, and I wish I can have a whole other podcast about who this man is and what he's done for me personally. He served 16 years in the United States Marine Corps, and this man is a hard-charging dude with the biggest heart as they come. And he and I are running this foundation every single day. We talk. In fact, I get in trouble because I talk to him more than I talk to anyone else.
So I love that you have a team because that's what it takes. It takes a team, but it takes someone. And we tell the story, the founder story, because I've never once met one founder with the hundreds of interviews that I've done in the last decade that said, oh, this is me. Every single one doesn't want to tell their story because it's about everybody else. And so it is about everybody else, but it takes that one, your grandfather's folder and tap on the shoulder and angel wings guiding you that lights the spark and brings everyone together. And so that is why we tell the story, because everybody has the ability to do something. And by telling the story of one, although we know you have an army behind you and a Navy and Marines and an Air Force behind you.
And we also have another gentleman named Eddie, who is and served in the United States Army, who's also a board member. He was with 10th Group Special Forces. So we have a very strong team with strong hearts,
which is everything. So since we have a few minutes before we kind of wrap this up, do you have a phrase? I have to think that there's so many things that probably motivate you or keep you going, but do you have a phrase or a motto that's kind of your go-to that that's kind of something that keeps you going, or something that you say a lot, or something that
yes, I do. As a matter of fact,
what is that?
God, give me the strength and wisdom to serve your will.
Amen. I use that one myself a little bit. And that's a beautiful one, because that's the whole thing. We're all here to serve. And if the whole world got that message and that motto, think of what a place we would be living in. So this has been a short journey that you've been on. It's not been a very long one, and it's going to be a long one, but you're at the beginning of this road. You're in your infancy at 14 months old. But what lessons have you learned in this short time? You've talked already about the community and the passion, but you must have learned so much in this little tiny window of time with the people that you meet and the stories that you learn. And what have you kind of taken away from this journey?
Well, every day is very unique. I have a lot of stories that have been presented to me across various social media platforms. So there's a lot of stories that want to be told. People just don't know who to tell it to. Right. So it's our responsibility to honor the legacies that those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for our freedom. It's our responsibility to continue to honor the names of those that are no longer with us. Yeah. But it's one of those things where we have to continue to rely on each other to really continue to amplify the message within our own communities and even in our own household, and really looking after one another between the walls in which we live. Right. So, it's one of those things where we can't, the after effects of someone taking their lives and those that have to live with it have been affected by it tremendously. I know some individuals that are still impacted by those who have taken their lives, and it breaks my heart to know that they still miss their loved one, and
they always will.
And they always will, and
they always will.
That
never goes away.
So heartbreaking. No, it does not.
And you know what? I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I forgive me for interrupting you, but you know what you've said so many times, and you're not saying it now, but I think that it's something that's so clear to me that you're doing. You're listening. You're listening. And by just listening, you're honoring them. You actually are listening. And to me, I feel like so much of the veteran community has not been listened to. And just by listening to them, you honor and acknowledge them. And that is a gift. Let me
tell you a little short story. So the other day I left work, and I don't know, a couple blocks away from the hospital, I'm literally sitting in the driver's seat of my truck. And to my left, I see this gentleman sort of kind of rocking in his truck. And I was like, that's a little weird. So I finally looked to my left, and this gentleman's looking at the sticker on my truck. And to the back left and all around every window of my truck, I have Oath to Country Foundation along with our social media QR code, right? So this gentleman's looking at the sticker. I finally wrote down my window, and I was like, this is a foundation to save our veterans from taking their lives. And it was just like that, because the time is now. If we're both at a stoplight. He's about to leave. I'm about to leave. So I don't know what else to say other than just what's at the tip of my tongue. And sure enough, he sits back down and he turns his face. One eye was missing, and he raised his arm to salute me. His hand was missing. And
making me cry.
And when you ask about what motivates our mission and what propels us to keep going when we think we're not moving anywhere, it's experiences like that that remind us that, you know what, God is sending these messengers to us to keep going, and to never back down from this fight. Because when we feel that, we're kind of spinning our wheels in the mud, we remind ourselves of the experiences like that. And I'll even share something even a little bit more personal. I received a notification on my medical system, on my electronic health record system for the hospital, and it said VA Los Angeles, right? So as I log into the system, I'm looking for a patient at the VA Los Angeles. And I'm like, that's really odd, because every time I receive a notification from the system, I log right in, I find the patient, work on the case, this, that, and the other. I log in VA Los Angeles. I'm like, who is there? And this is right around the time that I was starting the nonprofit. And it was actually, from what I believe and what I believe to understand, was my grandfather telling me, hey, I'm here. I was at the VA Los Angeles. And you know what? I'm watching over what you're doing. So sure enough, there's hundreds of experiences to share with you. I'll even give you a good example. I was at a hospital in Orange County, and I saw a patient bedside. And while reading through the chart, it read that the patient suffers from severe claustrophobia, depression, anxiety. He was on various meds to manage that. And in my head, I'm already calculating, okay, this man had to have served. So I go bedside, and I'm with the case manager. She's to my left. And I look at this gentleman and I said, sir, I cannot express my gratitude enough to thank you for what you have done for our country. I already knew he served during the Vietnam conflict. And I already knew. And he goes, how did you know? I said, sir, I read through your chart, and I know who you are and what you've done for our country and for our freedoms here today. For us to stand before you, she's crying, and I have goosebumps. And he goes, well, I was like, can you share a little bit about your military experience? He goes, well, I was with, the 26th Infantry Regiment. And sure enough, my grandfather served in the same regiment, and he was with them. And the patient at that time had the same first name as my grandfather. So started putting the pieces together. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a sign. I was very overwhelmed with emotions. I go outside. I left the hospital. I'm in my truck. I'm crying. I call my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, she will not believe it. Like, I don't know what else. Like, I'm like so overwhelmed with like just signs that this is what you're supposed to do.
It is what you're supposed to do, Justin. It is what you're supposed to do. And we are so grateful you are doing this. I'm going to need Kleenex to clean up this face all day long. Now, this is going to air on Veterans Day, but podcasts live forever. And to me, every day should be Veterans Day. And we should be honoring our veterans every single day. The people
every day is Veterans Day.
Every day is Veterans Day. And we need to be honoring those that have served our country, that have given us the gift of freedom and the gift that we have to serve and care for one another and to be the amazing Americans that we are. So we are so blessed to live in this country, and we are so blessed to have those that serve, that protect us and give us our freedom. And so I need to know how we can support you, how we can donate, how we can follow, volunteer, tell us everything that we can do to support this incredible work and support these amazing veterans who deserve all of our love and heart.
We have an upcoming event, which is probably going to be one of the biggest events I think we've ever hosted, simply because of the individuals that are involved in the entertainment aspect of our event. Saturday, December 4th, we are hosting our first annual Toys for Tots in Anaheim, California, at my friend's new restaurant, Craft by Smoke and Fire. So we're bringing together the community again for a gift of giving. We are raising toys to give to the children at Children's Hospital Los Angeles and or Orange County for the sick children at Children's Hospital during the month of Christmas. And we want to just be able to pour love into those kids fighting the good fight today. I have a huge, huge heart for children, especially those that are sick and still battling just another day. And all of us share the exact same passion and love for them too. So we're going to give to them. We already have over 550 toys already donated. And we're calling together our community to come forward. We have Brad Johnson, who served in the United States Marine Corps. He's a country artist. He's coming out to sing for approximately 4 hours. Following him is a live band. So we're going to have food, music, entertainment. I mean, come out, come support. You can log into our Instagram, oath_2_country_foundation. So Oath to Country Foundation. You can just type in Oath and it typically pops up on your Instagram search. And then you can also find us on Facebook. We are also on TikTok. So we respond to every single message within usually an hour. So any question or for volunteer,
I had to track you down on Instagram, donation. So I will concur to that.
yeah. I'm easy to track down. We are very easy to get a hold of. I mean, we have messages coming in from all around the world, which is beautiful. I mean, it's such a blessing. The message is out. We are here. We're in it for the long haul. We want to, if we can, we're going to change the world in many aspects. So yeah,
I am so grateful to you as a trustee of CHLA. I can't speak for CHOC, but I have been at CHOC, and it's also an incredible organization. But I will tell you that we get a lot of toys for Christmas because we have tens of thousands of children that come through. Well, we actually have hundreds of thousands of children with the ER that come through CHLA every year. And if for whatever reason, every single toy was not given at Christmas time, there is a toy vault where those toys go, so you know. And on that child's birthday, when a child has a surgery, when a child's having a hard day, those toys are given to those children. So while people feel that giving toys is only a once a year thing, I want you to know if they do show up to your event or when they show up to your event and they give a toy, that toy, if it isn't distributed on Christmas, that toy will be distributed to a sick child in need on a time that child needs it. And those toys are incredibly appreciated, as is you bringing community together to support and bring awareness and to help and support our veterans. So to me, that is just a win, 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 win. And we are so excited about everything that you're doing and so grateful to you, Justin. And I know your grandfather is guiding you on this, and what a privilege to watch this journey. And thank you for sharing your story with Charity Matters today. We're just honored, and thank you without crying to all of our veterans out there. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a special place in our hearts. You really do, Heidi. So thank you. Again, appreciate your time and sharing this space with us to share this message. And lastly, before I go, I really just want to say thank you to all the friends and families that have been involved to help make this foundation what it is today. We are not done. We are far from done. And we couldn't do it without their love and support from the very beginning. And I do want to send a special heartfelt thank you to my team and the individuals that I listed, but one in particular who is on the front lines with me every single day, day in, day out. His name is Eddie Coronado, and I wish we could have a sequel to talk about this gentleman, but he's an exceptional man, and I don't know if it would be what it is today without him. He has such a big love for serving his brothers and sisters, and this is his call to action. This is his life mission now. So being able to work alongside him on the front lines, doing what we're doing, I cannot be any more grateful, because he's changed my life in so many ways. So Eddie, I know when you listen to this, I want you to know that I love you so deeply. And I am grateful that God put you in my life and my father being your professor many years ago, because you have come at the right time when I did lose hope, because I didn't quite know if it was going to go any further another month. So thank you for being the fuel to my fire, and being able to be the fuel to your fire too, because you are my best friend, and we're going to do some good stuff together, right? Forward motion at all times. So
that is a perfect way to wrap this up. So thank you, Eddie. Thank you to all of our veterans. Thank you to everybody who's listening, and go follow Oath to Country Foundation on Instagram. You won't be disappointed. I love following their content and seeing all the great work that they're doing. And donate and show up on December 4th. And just don't forget, when you see a veteran, to honor them, to thank them. And we are so blessed. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Justin Gressiu, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think his comment about viewing challenges as opportunities was so inspiring and true. To learn more about modern day heroes like Justin, or if you'd just like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your friends and family. And please feel free to leave a review, 5-star, on Apple Podcast. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. See you next week.